I'm now asking myself why I do a thing.
We are the ones that can provide the solution to the problem.
I'm having a blast.
Welcome to One-on-One at Sun and Fun. Okay, so there is a lot of stuff going on in the GPS world. We've become so reliant on it. We're going to talk to Martin Pauly about the good and the bad and the things that we need to take care of. Martin, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
It's good catching up with you at Sun and Fun. So, Martin, you've been on the show a lot, and lately I've been on your channel. I've been seeing a lot of IFR work and a lot of IFR travel. So I want to talk to you about that, but as we get into that, IFR has become so reliant these days on GPS. We're moving away from VORs.
Yeah.
You know, of course, you know, the beacon ADF was a long time gone, but there's some problems with GPS. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's right. We are more and more dependent and relying on GPS, and we all know why, right? It's a wonderful tool. It's so easy to use, and it allows long direct legs that get us to our destination faster. The problem is that we have a worrisome trend of interference of the GPS signals of two kinds. There is jamming, and that is
so purposeful.
It could be unintentional sometimes, but yeah, a lot of it is intentional. It's both. Jamming is when the frequency that is used for GPS is blocked by somebody else, and so our GPS receivers are not able to filter out the real GPS signals from that massive noise, and then we get an integrity warning or no position at all. That's happening, for example, when the military does GPS testing here, or it happens when a truck driver uses a jammer to not allow his company to see where the truck is.
Oh, wow.
Right
I didn't know that was a
That
thing.
happens. And the events are sometimes widespread, sometimes isolated, but the trend is we see this happening more and more often. What's even more concerning is that there's now apparently technology out there in the wrong hands to spoof GPS signals.
Spoof?
Yes.
So not just jam. What does that mean?
Well, that means that your GPS receiver doesn't know that anything is wrong.
Okay.
But it is not computing the position where it's actually located.
Wow.
And we don't see that in the U.S. yet, but there are parts of the world like the Middle East and Eastern Europe where, you know, for whatever reason, malicious actors use that to get airplanes off course. And
is that all part of all the wars and stuff that are going on over there, the military conflicts?
Part of that is that another part is probably just states experimenting with that kind of technology, so that, you know, they have it ready and proven should a conflict
should they want to use it?
Should they want to use it one day, right? And it's easy to imagine what bad things you could do with it, right? If an airplane is on approach, it really matters that we are in the exact spot that we think we are in. So I think the message for pilots here is don't completely give up on VORs and DMEs. They're still helpful tools, and ILS, of course, right?
Right.
Practice those skills, and on a cross-country flight, do an occasional cross-check with VOR navigation to make sure that what the GPS shows you can be trusted.
That's a good message, and also it keeps your skills up, and you know, and I'll tell you that I kind of ignored the VOR for a while, and then when I went for my double I hadn't shot a VOR approach in the wild, as it were, always doing RNAVs or ILS. And realized how rusty my VOR was. And then I started teaching, instructing, and even one of my camera guys, Brad here, I was telling him about VORs on a long cross country. And so, you know, he put me to shame because he started, okay, what's the next VOR?
Right.
Oh, we should cross this radial at this time. And it's like, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. It's it can even be a fun game to kill a little time in a long cross country.
That's exactly.
Yeah, and then for those who fly instrument approaches, you know, don't. I know a lot of people who will decline an ILS when one is offered and fly the LPV approach instead.
Right.
We all know why, right? It's easier,
Right.
maybe even more accurate. But the day may come when we rely on that ILS to get down, and so I would encourage people to at least practice an ILS every now and then.
So practice an ILS, practice a VOR. Okay. All right. So what are some of the important things about IFR training and IFR flying that you might want to bring up here?
Yeah, that's a very open-ended question, but one general theme I think is that the IFR training that we're doing prepares students for the check ride, right?
Okay.
And that's for the practical test. And that's important. It's a big milestone. The real flying in the IFR system in the National Airspace is in many ways different from the training environment, right?
Right.
How we get our clearances, or the fact that most flights don't end up with an instrument approach, but with a visual approach, or with canceling
Right.
IFR, right? So that is to say that the training that we get is good and important, but it's not everything a pilot needs to know to be comfortable and efficient in the system later on. So I would encourage an IFR student during the training or after the training to just go on some cross-country flights on a nice day and also on an IMC day with an experienced instrument pilot and learn the rest of it, so to speak, right? All the things that are useful that were not required to pass the practical test.
Oh, I totally agree. I think that you can learn so much for the check ride, but then real world happens, and you're experiencing all that. The more experience you have, the better proficient you'll be, and proficiency is everything.
Yeah. And one aspect that I think in the context of instrument flying is really important here, Dan, is more and more flight schools don't allow training in clouds. So they never expose students to the actual conditions that they're training them for.
Why? Is it insurance or what?
Yeah. It's insurance. Insurance rates are lower if they agree to not fly an IMC.
Oh my goodness.
Right? Many of the instructors in flight schools here in the U.S., we all know, are very much at the beginning of their
And they
flying
don't have
career
that
yet,
much
so they're not
actual-
super comfortable yet in the clouds either. I can understand from a financial perspective why we are where we are, but I don't think we're doing ourselves a
It is a
favor
travesty.
here. So I encourage every instrument student to seek that experience with an experienced instructor, either during the training or right after, before they get into the clouds for real for the first time.
What's interesting for me is during my private, I had an instructor. One day we had that beautiful IMC day where the ceilings were at 1,000, so it wasn't horrible, but there wasn't very much wind. It was just it was just IMC, and so this is private.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, "Well, Dan, let's go do it." So he filed. We went up there. First time I'm experiencing this in the clouds, and all they're doing is vectoring us. He just asked ATC to just give him vectors,
Right.
and they said, "Yeah, we can do that. We're slow enough right now." And he vectored me around, and then the moment that got me hooked on IMC flying was he vectored me around. He loaded approach. I didn't know anything about that. We broke out right there with the runway right there lined up. I was like, oh, this is one of the greatest things I've ever experienced.
That is always spectacular. As is breaking out of the clouds on top of an overcast and seeing nothing but blue sky
Oh, I
above.
know. And forgetting your sunglasses. That's happened to me before because you're all down in the suit below.
Right.
But from right there, I knew I've got to get my instrument. So right after I got my private, I immediately went into the IFR training. And so I think it's sad that they're not training, giving them that IMC experience.
Yeah. And it's something that we can make up for, right? Anyone knows a pilot that goes on trips every now and then, and most of us are happy to take along somebody and share the fun, share the experience, and
take a
show them
safety
what it's
pilot
like.
up. So here's something really cool. So Brian Turner and I had somebody, a company that is making I call it Foggles on steroids, but they've got this plexiglass that goes in front of you that the instructor on his app can turn it opaque, or half opaque or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And so Brian and I went up and tested it. It was phenomenal. So you're flying along, and all of a sudden, you're in the clouds, and the pucker factor increases just like real life, and it was truly amazing. And it's super light. I don't like foggles; they get me a little annoyed. But this Icarus system was amazing, and I think if more flight schools get that would be really good training.
I would love to try that.
Okay,
because the surprise factor
I can
when you
arrange
don't
that.
know when it's. Let's do that. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you got to try this Icarus thing. You would love it. So, all right, what are some of the other points you want to bring up?
Yeah, one thing that I find a lot when I fly with people is they have a nice electronic cockpit, or at least an electronic HSI, and there's one tool that is not very well understood, and the moment people understand it, their instrument flying, hand flying, gets a lot better. And that is the ground track pointer on the HSI.
Okay,
It's usually,
ground track pointer.
right. So we have the heading bug, right, and we fly to a certain heading into the air, and then, of course, usually there's a crosswind of some sort that makes our movement over the ground a little different from where the nose is pointed.
So on the Aspen, which I know you fly, and I have an Aspen, is that green diamond? Is that what you're calling
yeah,
that?
it's a diamond symbol.
Yeah,
Color varies
okay.
by manufacturer.
Okay, I didn't know
but,
what I couldn't remember
Yep.
what the name is. So that's the ground path marker?
ground track indicator.
Ground track indicator, okay.
Again, the exact name differs a little bit, but it's always a diamond symbol.
Yeah. So it wasn't until my CFII in training that I actually even found out about that. I think you're right. People don't know about this incredibly useful tool.
Yeah. And here's how you use it. Once your deviation bar, the part of the HSI
Yeah.
that moves left or right, is centered, and you know that at that moment you are on your course that you want to be on, turn the airplane so that the tip of the course pointer is under that little diamond symbol.
Right.
And what that means is you're not just on the course now, but you're also tracking over the ground to stay on it.
Right.
Right? Because otherwise, wind correction is a bit of guesswork.
Yeah.
Right? And wind changes as we descend and climb. And the lining all this up, right? Making sure the needle is centered and the diamond is right on top of the needle takes all the guesswork out of this.
Oh, it's been amazing. It changed the way I fly all the time now. And as a matter of fact, my crew, I've got Brad here behind the camera, and I've been teaching him, and I showed him the ground track marker and how that's what you need to use.
Right.
And but turning left or right, when the ground path marker, it's a little bit backwards. It's it's like the wheels are on the
Yes.
back. It's a tail dragger kind of thing.
Yes.
And so what he said is he thought of it like one of those cups where you got to roll the ball into the cup, and that will really help you keep.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dan, because that's exactly right. We're used to moving to
Get
fly
the
heading
arrow
bug.
to the
And flying the ground track pointer is exactly opposite of that.
Yes.
So that takes a little bit of adjustment to get used to, but it's totally worth it. Once you do that,
Yes.
your instrument flying, intercepting courses and tracking courses or localizers or whatever you want to track, it's just so much easier.
helps immensely. Yes. All right. What else did you have on your list of important IFR things to know?
Well, the only other thing, Dan, that I thought we'd bring up today is the importance of recurrent training.
Okay.
Flying is a perishable skill, and instrument flying, especially flying in the clouds and not getting disoriented and trusting the needles, if we don't do that somewhat regularly, it's hard. And I'm not exempt from that. I just did an IPC a few days ago.
Oh,
right?
really?
I fly a lot in right seat with instrument students, so I'm familiar with the technology and the procedures. But when I'm in the clouds or put the foggles on, which this winter I haven't had a chance to do very much, I get rusty, and the first time wasn't pretty. So
Right.
it's important. It's important for me, for you, for everyone, so that when the day comes where we really rely on that skill, we're sharp, we're proficient. So I would recommend going up with a safety pilot somewhat regularly, maybe a couple of times a year or so, and practicing, or flying in real clouds, and I mean hand flying, right? Autopilot. Autopilot's a great tool, but it doesn't keep us proficient with hand flying in the clouds. And
No, I agree.
We got to be able to do both.
Yeah. All right. Great words, Martin. I really appreciate you coming out here at Sun and Fun and talking about it.
Well, it's fun. Dan, good to see you, and enjoy the rest of the show.
All right, and thank you guys for watching. To bring content like this, we have sponsors who support us, and it really helps us if you support them. Like Flying Eyes, we're at their booth. And if you go to flyingeyesoptics.com, you can use our discount code, taking off all caps one word, for 10% off. Also Z-Vision, xevision.com, the brightest landing and taxi lights out there. Colton Mortgage, coltontakingoff.com. Clemens Insurance, Jerry saved me a ton of money at clemensinsurance.net. Give him a call. You'll be happy. 67 designs, the best camera, iPhone tablet mounts that you can have for your airplane, your boat, or your car even. They're incredible. I call them the best tugs of camera mounts. They're super solid. So visit our sponsors. If you go and support them, it helps bring us this kind of content. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.